All right, let's get into the Roto World headlines. We have a lot to get through today, plenty of news around training camp, and we'll start with Cooper Kupp, who left Rams practice early on Tuesday with an apparent injury. Adam Schefter reported that Kupp is dealing with a hamstring injury where he will be out for a few weeks right here. So pretty concerning. They think he could potentially be back for scrimmages in a few weeks when things are really going full speed. But, Jay, a guy that dealt with some injury last year as well, as we know, for Kupp, not what you want to see for an offense that already has a lot of injury questions.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the issue with Kupp, and we know how productive he is. Obviously, 2021, he has maybe the greatest wide receiver season of all time. Last year, he's on a disaster of a team, but was still just accumulating through sheer volume. All the deep stuff went away, but Stafford was just throwing the ball to him every single time because there was no one else. But I think the concern, if you're drafting Kupp, and it looks like he'll probably be okay for the start of the season, though that's not a guarantee, is that he's on a team that has so much downside that if it goes south for them, they're going to sit him out extra games. I'm sure if they were a playoff team last year, he probably could have come back for the end of the season. So they're just a weird team at the moment where it's Aaron Donald, who might still be the best defensive player in the sport. It's Cooper Kupp, who might still be the best wide receiver in the sport, and then it's almost nothing else.
Top heavy.
Yeah, I mean, if the Rams, if they were the New York Mets, they would be selling off Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp to the Cowboys and the 49ers and getting draft picks back. But they're just going to roll with these guys, and yeah, I'm not really sure what's in store for the Rams.
Barry, where's your concern level when you see this news about Kupp already early in camp?
Well, listen, my little Cooper Kupp, obviously one of my favorite players in the NFL. Little nervous. Honestly, you don't love to see it after coming off of a major injury, now has another injury. But the fact of the matter is Jay, he is quarterback proof. He is team proof. This is somebody who last year had a 33% target share. He was actually the number one wide receiver last year on a points per game basis. People don't realize that because it was such a bad season for the Rams and because he didn't play the second half of the season after the injury. But he had 8 full games last year. He had over 25 fantasy points, or he had 25 or more in 5 of those 8 games. And then you think about the Rams depth chart beyond Cooper Kupp, right? I mean, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, Ben Skowronek, DeMarcus Robinson's there. It's really going to be, yes, they have Tyler Higbee, but honestly, that offense is going to go through Cooper Kupp. The fact that he's had another injury so soon after just coming back from last year's injury is enough for me to move him below Jamar Chase. So I have my current rankings, I have Jefferson, Kupp, Chase at wide receiver. My top 200 is going to come out on Thursday, an updated, a brand new and updated top 200 right now. Just a top 100 is out at NBCSports.com, rotoworld.com. But when my top 200 comes out, I will have Chase ahead of Kupp. It's just enough for me to put that over. But the fact that he should be back for the regular season, the fact that I think he is team and quarterback proof. I understand the concern, Jay, but to me, Kupp's a competitor, and I think barring a major injury, he'll be out there every game.
Over in Denver, some more unfortunate wide receiver injury news. Broncos beat reporter Mike Cris reports Tim Patrick suffered a full tear of his Achilles during practice on Monday. Obviously, he had a season-ending injury last year, another season-ending injury here. And on top of that, Mike Garafolo from NFL Network reported the Broncos plan to waive KJ Hamler with a non-football illness designation. Hamler has made a post. He has a what would be described as a mild heart condition where he thinks he will work his way back onto the field. So already the Broncos receiver corps getting very, very thin. Even after drafting Marvin Mims, there were big plans for Tim Patrick this year.
Yeah, definitely. It's just so sad for him for this to happen again, season-ending injury in the preseason. We actually have a tweet from my friend Romy Bean from CBS Colorado, which details just the extent of the injuries that the team has dealt with the past 4 years. 2020, Cortland Sutton does his ACL, and then 2021, KJ Hamler has the same injury, and then Tim Patrick last year with the ACL, and now with the torn Achilles. So you feel for Tim Patrick, I guess from a fantasy perspective. I mean, Connor, what can Mims do straight away? Because it seems like he's going to have more opportunity now.
He can win down the field, right? I think it kind of, you look at them, Patrick is a guy that has a lot of size and can win the jump ball as well, and they were probably hoping for that. And when you look at Marvin Mims, he doesn't have that size, but he has 4.3 speed. He plays bigger than his size. He plays above the rim. Obviously, where they drafted him in a new offensive system with Sean Payton, they really, really valued him and were really excited about him. But now that becomes accelerated here, guys, for Marvin Mims. So for Marvin Mims, this is definitely not only a bump in targets and opportunity, but I think it puts more expectations on his plate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I mean, I think it actually, look, first off, awful. I feel terrible for Tim Patrick after last year and then this year. It's just brutal. It's just absolutely brutal. Achilles especially. It's just an awful injury. So that is awful. But unfortunately, the business we're in, when there is an injury, there is a fantasy impact to that, and we're here to discuss the fantasy impact. Look, Jerry Jeudy was already a trendy breakout player to begin with. He was my wide receiver 23. I think he's going to have to come up a spot or two when my new rankings come up. Same with Courtland Sutton. Again, yes, more opportunity for Marvin Mims, more opportunity for Greg Dulcich, maybe Albert Aquibonam. Maybe they go more two tight end sets here. I mean, obviously Peyton used the tight end very effectively in New Orleans, whether it was, obviously Jimmy Graham, but, you think about Taysom Hill in all the different ways, and I'm not saying either of those players are Taysom Hill, but I think he'll be creative with his tight ends as a result of this. But I think both Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, those guys raise up, especially given the fact that both guys were, in trade rumors this offseason. Both know that, hey, there's a short leash for them in Denver. My expectation here is that there's just more of a narrow target tree here. And I do think Marvin Mims is kind of a really interesting late-round rookie that you could see having an impact in the second half of the season. Don't forget, both Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams are very good pass-catching running backs, so you could see them using those guys more in the passing game. Again, think about how Sean Payton used Alvin Kamara in New Orleans as well. It's going to be a complex offense. It's going to be a pass-first and a fantasy-friendly offense, and I think it is incredibly unfortunate what happened to Tim Patrick, but certainly my expectation is the bigger names, more targets for all of them in Denver.
Over in Buffalo, Joe Biscaglia from The Athletic reports James Cook has worked as the Bills' far and away top back during training camp so far. James Cook coming off a rookie season that was a little underwhelming for a second-round pick at the position. They brought in Damian Harris this offseason. Barry, do you think that this could be a backfield that one guy can get the majority of the touches, or are you still buying into that maybe it's a committee?
I think it can be. I mean, remember, Devin down the stretch last year, Devin Singletary was the guy for Buffalo. I mean, James Cook had flashes, and a lot of us that saw kind of the potential of James Cook were like, hey, free James Cook. But the fact of the matter is, with Devin Singletary now in Houston, 215 touches from the Bills last year are up for grabs. And so, yes, I think Damian Harris could certainly vulture some goal line stuff. I believe Latavius Murray is there in Buffalo as well. See if he makes the team. But James Cook, to your point, Connor, he's a second-round pick. He is somebody who last year averaged 5.7 yards per carry. That was the second highest among any running back that had at least 80 rushes last season. He averaged over 80 yards from scrimmage in the games in which he got double-digit touches. So, I mean, again, when he got work, he was really productive last year. He's going to get a lot more work this year. The question is, will he get the goal line stuff? Considering you have Damian Harris there, and, of course, Josh Allen is always a threat to keep it himself. It is a pass-first offense. But Cook, I think, is really interesting. My current ranks have him at 29. I think I'm too low on him. And I think he is a – you always hate to say this phrase, but in this case, I think it's super accurate. He's a running back 3 with significant upside. And when you get into the range of him in that kind of the mid-20 range, there are guys that don't have the same kind of upside as he does going in the same range as him. Again, because I think you'll see a little bit of a committee early on, but I think if James Cook proves that he can handle a full workload, I mean, Damian Harris is a nice player, but he ain't James Cook. He doesn't have the versatility. Connor, you can speak to it as well in terms of there's a reason why Cook was a second-round pick.
Yeah, Cook, like his brother, has that speed to the edge to run effectively in outside zone and hit big plays. And you brought it up, Barry, the ability, the yards per carry were really promising for Cook. Jay, is this also a situation that we expect the offense to be so potent that, we talk about this with the Chiefs all the time, right, with Pacheco and a lot of different other offenses, but with Buffalo, that you look at it and go, I'm going to buy into somebody in that backfield because this offense is going to score a lot, and this is the guy that we believe the regime has invested the most in.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, to Matthew's point, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, they're not super scary. I guess if Cook is the guy, then he's going to be able to capture that role. But do you think that he has, from what he did at Georgia, can he be a 3-down back? I think he's 5'11", 190.
Smaller guy, yeah, even a little smaller than that. I think you'd like him to be that pass-catching back, to do your out. And it goes back to what Barry said about goal line. We just don't know. Josh Allen is a guy that can eat into that. Latavius Murray, with how he's built, and Damian Harris, with how he's built, you would think they would be that. So he has to be an effective pass-catching back to really have this breakout season, but I think it's there for him to absolutely be that guy, especially while they try to ramp up Dalton Kincaid in the pass game.
Yep.
You got to lean on somebody else as well. So, all right, one more here, guys. Actually, no, before we move on to the last thing, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler believes Baker Mayfield has held much of the momentum for the Buccaneers starting quarterback job all summer, Jay. We heard, and really spring, we heard Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield. Maybe not the most exciting heavyweight title fight right there, but Trask is a guy they've used a second-round pick on. Baker is a veteran that has bounced around and is trying to hold on to his career, but it sounds like Baker's breaking away.
Yeah, and I mean, like, let's define momentum, because if it's like momentum, it feels like if a tree falls over in the forest and no one hears
Completing a few
it.
passes,
Yeah, if
yeah.
Baker Mayfield gains momentum at Bucs training camp, does anyone hear it? I think, look, there are ways to believe in Baker Mayfield if you want to interpret what's happened the past 5 years in a certain way, where Baker was excellent in year 1 and year 3 in Cleveland. And then I think year 2 was the Freddie Kitchens year, which was a disaster. And then year 4, he was dealing with the shoulder. And then last year was just a weird year where he goes into Carolina and it's not quite, he goes in there late and there's not a great skill position set for him outside of DJ Moore. And then he ends up on the Rams when Cooper Kupp isn't there. And so I guess, he's still the number 1 pick in the draft. We are 5 years, 6 years removed from that. But, I mean, have you given up on Baker, or do you think there's still some light?
Man, I think it's tough right now. The injuries, he hasn't looked like the player that came onto the scene for the Browns early in his rookie season as well. I think, once again, the fact about how much he's bounced around, it seems like every time he might be finding some success, he comes back down to earth. I think for me, my question to you here, Barry, is this quarterback competition even fantasy relevant this month?
It's not fantasy relevant to the quarterback position, right? Because even if he's the starter, right, and he has really nice skilled players around him, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rachaad White, right, all people that will be drafted high in fantasy leagues this year. The fact is he doesn't run, and he doesn't have a rock-solid, hold on the job. And so he's not fantasy relevant, but it is fantasy relevant to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because, to the point, right, he is, we care about who the quarterback is of Tampa Bay because we care about Mike Evans, because we care about Chris Godwin, because we care about Rachaad White. I mean, maybe Cade Otton has a bump this year as well. And so I think you would rather, if you're drafting one of those guys, I think you would rather Baker Mayfield, who at least has had success in the NFL. It hasn't been consistent, but he has had success in the NFL. We just don't know what you get out of Kyle Trask. Baker does have a big arm. He has at times in his career been accurate. He's also been wildly inaccurate at times here. But, think about this. Jarvis Landry, if you want to compare Chris Godwin to a player that has played with Baker Mayfield, how about Jarvis Landry, who was a slot receiver, who, by the way, was a top 30 wide receiver with Baker Mayfield when they were in Cleveland, right? They had a couple of good years there with Baker Mayfield. And so you feel good about Chris Godwin. Mike Evans feels sort of quarterback proof, like he's, is there a better 50-50 ball winner in the NFL than Mike Evans? Right? I mean, right. Like with Mike Evans, you got to throw it somewhere near him. I mean, the guy's like 6'7". Just throw it somewhere near Mike Evans, and chances are he's coming down with it. So, I think if you are drafting either those players or Rachaad White, I think you're rooting for Baker Mayfield because we think this offense will be more competent under him. But I don't know that for him specifically. He's my quarterback 32.
I'm with you all the way on that. I think there's a better floor with Baker Mayfield for these guys, these pass catchers, than with Kyle Trask, to state the obvious. So.
Yeah, I just worry about the O-line as well,
right.
Where that's been decimated. It's
turnover.
Not the same O-line. And also Baker, so much of his success was behind that awesome offensive line in Cleveland. Now he doesn't have that kind of protection.
One more thing here, guys. Dan Campbell over in Lions camp wanted a live lion on the sideline, but in his words, the league frowns on that. Jay, another summer of Man Campbell, Caffeine Campbell.
I mean, there were rumors that our producer Matt Casey wanted to put a lion out the front of the happy hour set to just kind of
devour
improve.
Us.
Yeah, well, to keep us on our toes and improve our analysis of Kyle Trask. But just another great memeable moment for Dan Campbell, the Lord of it, king of the press conference.
Barry, is that approved by you? Would you prefer a lion on set here at the happy hour or at Lions camp, or are we a hard out on that?
No, I'm all in favor of lions, of many, many lions. Lions in Detroit, lions at the happy hour set, lions everywhere. You know what? What we should do as a group, Connor, you and I have not figured out a present for Jay Croucher for his birthday that he celebrated a couple of days ago. And I believe his children, his young daughter especially, would love a pet lion. We should get him, as a show, have a pet lion, but it stays with Jay Croucher.
I like that.
Your wife would like that, right?
Yeah, my 5-year-old daughter's lobbying for a goldfish, but if we want to just go lion instead, yeah, that can also play.
Yeah, a pet lion in Stanford,
It's
that's
a
legal,
different
right?
way to go.
I thought Barry was leading towards,
Yeah.
like, we'll get you tickets to the zoo as a family, and instead it's a lion in your backyard, Jay. So, well done.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.